Karen Cohen, please, with a great applause. There she is. Yay!
Thank you, mustache. Hi everyone, and welcome to my Tiny Phoenix project. My name is Karen Cohen. I help people and systems work better together, and that means that sometimes I'm an engineering manager, and sometimes I get to do product management, and sometimes, but not all the times, I get to write a bit of code. I currently work for a company called Wix, and with Wix you can build stunning websites and run your business online. And about a year ago, I took on the role of engineering manager for a server infrastructure team. It's a team of about 7 people, part juniors, part seniors. They do on-call rotation, they write in Scala, in Java, some Python tools, and they're considered one of the smartest and one of the really successful and strongest teams within our server guild, or within our server community. And the first few months, what I did was basically observe the way that they work. And I observed the people and got to know them and build trusting relationships. And the first person I noticed was Dmitry. Dmitry is wonderful. Seriously, this guy is amazing. I mean, he has a solid computer science background. He was even a teacher at some point for computer science. He has a great understanding of our domain. He has a great understanding of the product end as well. And he's an excellent technical leader. He knows everything. He knows everything there is to know about our product and the architecture and the infrastructure and the database and the network and how things work around the team. And he fixes problems very, very, very fast. Like 15 minutes or 5 minutes even, and it's already in production and it's there and it's just fixed. He is always available, be it days, nights, weekends, vacations, holidays, and you see him pushing code at 4 a.m. To our repository. And not only that, but Dmitry really cares about code quality. So he sets styling and coding standards for our team and pushes for styling and coding standards for the rest of the server community within Wix. However, there are things that only Dmitry does. So only Dmitry knows all of the things that there is to know about our systems. And only Dmitry answers all of the questions, and only Dmitry has all of the answers. Only Dmitry reviews all of the commits that go into our repository. And only Dmitry understands extremely difficult sugar syntacted Scala code that's in our systems. I don't know how many of you have written Scala before or have seen Scala before, but it can be a truly horrible experience if you just I'll put some implicits in there and then some sugar syntax in it and then some apply and unapply, and then eventually you have no idea how to read that code. But Dmitry knows how to read that code. Dmitry really cares about design and architecture, and he makes it a point to be a part of every single design and every single feature and every single big change that we want to make within our systems, and he's just very, very involved and very, very, very passionate. The rest of the team are extremely professional. However, they have developed an extremely strong dependency on Dmitry. So they've gotten to the point where on the one hand they keep wanting to push features forward, but on the other hand they are constantly waiting for Dmitry. And with a team of 7 people, that means that there are 6 people who are constantly waiting for you. It means that he is overloaded. It means that when he's pushing code at 2 a.m. or at 4 a.m., he's going to come in late to the office, so he's not going to be able to have that brainstorming or architecture discussion on that new feature that you wanted to have at 8 a.m., he may be able to have it at 12 or 2 p.m., and that means that you would be waiting. Any questions you would ask him on Slack really depends on how overloaded he is, and sometimes just reviewing code would take anywhere between like a few days to 6 weeks. And it was funny because when I showed him this number, he actually went into GitHub and he wrote some scripts, and then he was like, oh, no, here are the real numbers. I think they're much better. And then on the top PR, it was, he sorted them by time, and then the worst one was 6 months. The second one was 5 months, and then the rest were like 3 months, a month, and then a few weeks. It was just, it was beautiful. Our clients would either wait, give up, complain to our managers, try to hack or bypass our systems, or try to basically latch on to Dimitri and get his time, and like be on their best behavior around Dimitri and give him chocolates and whatever. But that's not the worst part of it all. The worst part of it was that Dimitri was very, very, very sad. He's just in this situation where he keeps answering the same questions over and over and over again. He doesn't get to grow. He doesn't get to experience new things. He doesn't get to solve new problems. He's not growing in this position. He doesn't get a break. He doesn't feel comfortable. He doesn't take any breaks. So even when he's on vacation, even when he's abroad with his family, he's still looking over commits. And it really reminded me of this really great DevOps book. It's like an iconic book, The Phoenix Project, which is what my talk is named after. So there's this guy there, and his name is Brett, and he knows everything, and he never gets to go on vacation. And even when he tries, they bring him back. And he just puts out fires, and he's this amazing guy, but everyone is highly dependent on him. If you haven't read this book, it's great. It's a fictional story, but obviously this type of behavior happens all around us. So you should really go ahead and read this book. So anyway, after a few months of observation, I decided it was time for change. So before we make any changes, we need to imagine where we want to be. So we want to be in a place where we move fast as a team. We want to be able to share knowledge between our different team members. We want to be able to learn and grow. We want to have everyone growing in their different positions. And of course, we want people to be happy. We want them to stay with us. We want to have retention. We want people coming into work happy. And of course, we want a happy Dimitri. Now, if there's one thing I know about problem solving, and I'm not like this huge expert, but the first thing I know is that you have to admit there's a problem in order to be able to solve it. So I held an intervention. And this intervention wasn't like, hey guys, you suck. It wasn't like that at all. What I did was that I approached it very, very delicately. After logging a bunch of different behaviors and a bunch of different events that I've seen happen within the team, the different timings that I saw, how long it would take to review a PR, how the different people feel within the team, the different behaviors that I saw in the day-to-day. And the first person I spoke with was Dimitri himself, because I wanted to know that he was open to the possibility of this changing. And this was quite a delicate situation, because you would think that that the person in this situation would be happy to accept a change and would be happy to let go, but some people have what's called hero syndrome, where they really like to be the person who comes in, swoops in, saves the day, who everyone is very dependent on, and who everyone always needs. So it really is a tricky situation. Luckily for me, he was very open to making this change. Not only was he open to it, he basically looked at me and he went like, yeah, sure, we can try. Yeah, you're gonna be the fourth manager who tried, but yeah, sure, we could try. And I was like, great show of faith, great. And the second thing I did was have one-on-one conversations with each and every member of the team. And there what I did was discuss their day-to-day, discuss where they want to grow, and again, discuss very delicately how things are going right now. Mostly by asking questions about how do you work, how do you think things are going, what is stopping you in your day-to-day, and where would you like to be, of course. My computer just turned off. Is it doing something? I don't know. It's back. Okay, cool. So after I did that, we had a team meeting, which we have every Sunday, because work in Israel is Sunday to Thursday, which is the equivalent of having it on Monday, if you're like having trouble picturing this. And we decided that we're going to treat this as an agile process. So we decided that we don't yet know all the answers. We know that there are some things that are bothering us, but obviously this is going to be an ongoing journey. We're going to change things along the way, and we're going to figure out slowly how we're going to make this change within our team. We're going to collect feedback, and we're going to do retrospectives, and we're going to figure out what works for us and what changes we want to implement in the way that we work as a team. And together, we decided on 2 guidelines that we were going to start with. Nothing is working. Okay. So the first thing we decided on is never come in empty-handed. So what does that mean? What used to happen within the team is that when someone had a question, or when someone had a production incident, when someone had a feature that they wanted to do, a design question, a thought about architecture, any sort of change that they wanted to make within the system, the first thing they would go, their natural instinct became to go up to Dimitri and ask them, hey, what should I do with this problem? And Dimitri, being the loving and caring person that he is and cares about like deadlines and cares about the team moving forward, simply gave them the answer. And we really wanted to change all that. We wanted to change that dynamic. So what we said was, if you have a production incident, if you have a new problem that you're dealing with, if you have anything that requires you to make a change, the first thing you do is you research it on your own. It may sound really, really dumb to anyone in this audience that is working in that way already, but the team had developed a pattern of working that was tricky enough to change. They didn't notice how reliant they were on on Dimitri's information, on Dimitri's knowledge. So just making that shift did a few things, or we were hoping that it would do a few things. The first thing we were hoping it would do is that it would force people to do the research, to do the learning, to gain that knowledge on their own. And we were hoping that they would figure out a solution along the way, and then they wouldn't have to even go to Dimitri at all. The second thing that we wanted to do is we wanted to accomplish ownership and accountability. One of the things that used to happen a lot was that people would say, well, I did this because Dimitri said so, and I did this not because it makes sense, but Dimitri told me to, and Dimitri said this would work, and Dimitri said that would work, and so that's why I made this change in production. I'm not really sure how the code works. I did what Dimitri told me. So like they weren't accountable, they didn't feel accountable for the work that they did, which was very tricky. The third thing actually that we wanted to have happen is we wanted them to be able to, we wanted to empower them to make their own decisions. So it's not only about the learning, it's not only about the doing the research, and it's not only about the accountability. We wanted to have them be confident enough to be able to make those decisions on their own. The second guideline that we wanted to implement was to what we call escalate gradually. Now, if you remember, what would happen is that everyone, imagine like a star topology versus a mesh topology of networks. We wanted to move from a star to a mesh topology, where in a star topology, everyone simply goes directly to Dimitri, and the only person who holds all the knowledge is Dimitri himself. Whereas in a mesh topology, which is where we wanted to move, we wanted to create a sharing of information. We wanted to create sharing of knowledge. And what we had hoped this would do, what we wanted them to do was, before they even think about going to Dimitri, after they have done the research on their own, they would go to another team member and they would discuss the problem, and they would get that quicker feedback loop. They would share the knowledge in a domain that the other team member probably isn't aware of, because we didn't have any one team member aside from Dmitry who knew most or even all of the system. And the third thing that sort of happened naturally was that they used to get their answer from their team member, meaning that after they had talked to their team member, they already reached the conclusion that their solution was good enough, they had already gained enough confidence in their solution so that they didn't even have to go ahead and talk to Dmitry. Now, these two changes have a large cost to them. Seeing as we are a server infrastructure team, and seeing as a lot of different people depend on us, this is something that we had to speak about with our managers. We had to make it okay to make mistakes. Now, at Wix Engineering, we do have a culture and we do have infrastructure for people to make mistakes. We have an infrastructure for experimentation. We have an infrastructure for rolling back changes in production. We have a bunch of different infrastructures, but apparently within that team, it wasn't very forgiving for mistakes. So what used to happen was that before someone would push changes to production, Dmitry would always review that code. There would always be that security blanket, and if something had happened, not only would they say, oh, this wasn't my idea, this was Dmitry's problem, this was Dmitry's idea, and then it would be very, very tricky. So we had to make room for mistakes. We had to make it okay to make mistakes, to blow up things in production, to break production. It needs to be okay. The second thing is that we had to make time for learning. So if we said before, you never come in empty-handed, you need to invest time in researching the problem, you need to come in with, I don't know, a Stack Overflow question that you found, you need to come in with logs, you need to come in with metrics, you need to come in with any sort of information or even a suggestion that you have for this new architecture that you want to implement. So that's going to take time. This is a learning process for people who haven't done that up until that point. And the third thing was patience. So this is patience for the process, for the different people that you're now going to have to explain this part of the system that they don't know. This is patience towards themselves, right? Like, you're not going to wake up tomorrow morning just because, we started this process and just because we decided that we're going to work differently. It doesn't necessarily mean that you're all of a sudden going to have all the answers and going to have all this confidence to make your own decisions. So you're going to have to be very, very forgiving to yourself as well. Now, if we're speaking about this process, and we spoke about how we're doing it in an agile way, and we also started talking about how we measure results. So there's that question, and that's where the idea of a journal comes in. So what I said in the beginning was that I started logging things that had happened within the team, the way that people were functioning, the way that the team was functioning as a whole, and I logged how people were feeling, I logged how Dmitry responded to different questions that were asked, how, the different team dynamics, and that's something that I kept logging as we moved forward. And that's because I wanted us to make sure that we were acting, and we were acting based on facts and not feelings. And this actually proved to be very, very beneficial, because not only do I get to give this talk with actual facts that I have of how things changed along the way, but it also showed us the ways in which things changed, which was quite an interesting thing to see what people cared about enough to mention. So after a month, we did a retrospective, and here's what people reported. So the juniors reported that they felt more involved in design work. They said that they feel more confident when they go up and speak with Dmitry because they already had done their research. And they got to know more parts of the code because people had come up to them and consulted with them. And then Dmitry, on the other hand, he's like, I see no significant change, not so bad. That is not my best Dimitri impression, but I would just do him no justice if I tried again. So he didn't feel any change whatsoever. The other people were doing so much work, but then apparently the effect that this whole situation had on him, things looked very, very bleak for Dimitri. So what I could do with this journal and with all this information that I had collected at the time was show it to Dimitri and say, look, this is how the other people are feeling. This is how much more they're contributing right now. And it didn't change his mind whatsoever. He wasn't like that happy llama we saw earlier all of a sudden. But what it did do is that it showed him the possibility that things could change. And it really made him take that first step into like believing that it's even possible. Because we had facts around him that showed him that people were willing to go the extra mile, that people were willing to work extra in order for things to change with how the team was working. Now, what happened after this retrospective was really great, because I had another team member come up and say, we don't do code reviews. Dimitri is still doing all the code reviews, and we want to get more involved. We want to do more. So we decided as a team, again, that everyone would do code reviews, not just Dimitri, and that the first thing we would use that together with the Escalate Gradually guideline that we have, meaning that you first assign a different team member to review your code. And the problem here was that we didn't have reviewers who really knew how to review code. They have never done that before, so we had a learning curve there as well. So what we did was decide on first that other team member reviews your code, and then if Dimitri finds something wrong with it or something that could have been better, what they would do was that Dimitri would go to the reviewer who reviewed the code and speak with them and address that situation specifically, and make sure that the reviewer understands how and what could have been better, which means that we were slowly and gradually creating better reviewers. We had one team member who actually went the extra mile on that as well, and he had went over all of his code and all of his PRs for the 6 months prior, and he looked at mistakes, repeating mistakes that he made, repeating offenses, and then he created this Kahoot quiz and did it for the entire team. So he went like, what's wrong with this code? A, B, C, and D. What could be better? What am I doing wrong? And it was really, really beautiful because it showed that he was learning within the process and he really did want to do better, and the team really enjoyed it as well, so they got to be better reviewers as well. Dimitri made a similar quiz later on, and he presented this sort of quiz to the entire server guild, all of the server developers within Wix, and he also got great reviews, and people also enjoyed and learned within that process. So all in all, we created a situation where the team got better, our company got better, and everyone was in this learning position. After 3 months, this was when things really started to kick. So Dimitri smiled, which was like an event on its own. It was like, I had three different people come up to me and say, like, I saw Dimitri smile today. I asked him a question, and he didn't turn to me with a grumpy face. He just smiled at me, and I almost felt like he was proud of the solution that I had offered, which was really a proud moment for him, for me, for the entire team. So people reported that his overall attitude had changed. So that was great as well. Not only is he smiling, but he's also very happy to help other people, not just within the team, but our clients as well. He was still in the loop for harder problems, which was where we wanted him to be. But for the day-to-day stuff, he was slowly phasing out of that. So that was great. Now, for Dmitry himself, we still had some expectation setting to do. So remember how we talked about that patience. So Dmitry apparently isn't a very patient person. So he was very upset that people still needed him at all. So again, we discussed, that patience, and we discussed him still, that this is a learning process. This isn't something that's going to be solved not within a month, not within 3 months, and definitely not within 6 months. I mean, you don't turn junior to senior within 6 months. It's just not something that happens. People need to gain more experience, and people need to gain more confidence, and he needs to gain more trust together with them, and things just don't turn around just like that. So what he had decided to do was that he would start writing a journal on his own, and then he would have more facts that would turn him around, and he would find more ways in which we as a team can improve. After 6 months, this is very interesting, because I had 2 or 3 people come up to me and say, "Today, I corrected Dmitry." And I have never seen anyone celebrate winning an argument that hard. I have never seen such a huge smile on someone's face after winning an argument. It was such a proud moment for them, for each and every one of them individually. And it had seemed that now they had enough confidence. And at that point, what started to happen was that they started to lead their own projects. And this type of behavior of never coming in empty-handed and escalating gradually, and all these guidelines that we had implemented, it had started to leak into other areas of their professional lives. So we had one guy on the team who had trouble with taking a large task and splitting it up into smaller tasks. He used to use me a lot for help, and then when he took on a project, I went to him and I offered my help, and he said, "No, I want to start on my own, and if I need any help, I'll come to you for feedback. And if I need any help, I'll come to whoever for feedback." And that was an amazing experience. It was just beautiful. But not only that, it was right about that time when Dmitry started to have the mental capacity to take on different things around our system. So he had the mental capacity to take on projects and changes that he had wanted to make that he just couldn't cope with all that stress that he had before, with all that overworking and the questions, and he just couldn't do it. And around that time, he suddenly had the space to take on a side project. He suddenly had the space to make changes, very, very big changes within our system, and feel comfortable doing that because he knew he would have the capacity to later on deal with whatever he needed to deal with. And not only that, he actually took a vacation right now. He is now on a 2-week vacation with no Wi-Fi, no internet, which is pretty amazing. So this is where we are right now. And all of this is great, but habits are very, very, very hard to change. And this is a process that we're going to have to keep working on. Every new person that comes into the team sees Dmitry, and he's like, "I want to go to that guy for feedback. He seems very professional." And then we lose that whole chain. We lose all the guidelines that we put in place. So it's something that we have to work on continuously. Otherwise, we go back. And then we have to be very frightful of laziness. I mean, if someone comes in and they don't really have the energy to work, then they're going to cut corners and they're going to go straight to the person who, of course, has all the answers. So we really need to make sure that we stick to the guidelines that we put in place. And that's going to be very, very difficult. And then the last thing that I really want to change is the whole informal code reviews that Dmitry still does. Even when he isn't asked, even when he when he does have Wi-Fi, he goes over every single commit to our repository. Which is both great and awful. I want things to crash in production. I want people to get burned. I want I want them to be able to feel what it is that they did to production. And I know that way they're gonna remember that experience, and they're gonna learn more from that than they will in any other experience. So thank you. I hope that you've enjoyed our story and our progress. And that you can take away some tips on how to change things with your own teams. And I'll be around today and tomorrow, and feel free to come up to me and ask me any questions, because my time is up. Thank you.